So, we're going to talk about the psychology of digital silence today. In a world that is completely obsessed with building a personal brand, have you ever stopped and noticed how some of the most successful people out there are, well, they're practically ghosts online? It's a really fascinating paradox, so let's get into it. I mean, you've probably seen this yourself, right? You're scrolling and you think of some titan of industry, a brilliant artist, or a game changing scientist, and they have almost no online footprint. It just goes against everything we're told about needing to be seen to be successful. So, what is really going on there? Our first thought is usually to assume they're being secretive, or maybe even insecure, like they're hiding something. But the reality is actually so much more interesting. What if that digital silence isn't insecurity at all? What if it's a sign of a deep, quiet, unshakable confidence? To really get why this idea is so radical, first we have to just acknowledge the incredible pressure we are all under. There is this unspoken rule in our digital age. If you aren't posting, if you aren't sharing and engaging, you're basically risking becoming irrelevant. It feels like our careers, our social lives, everything depends on being visible. But there's this concept that just completely pushes back on all that pressure. It's called the silent authority. And it's this idea that people who are truly high value, well, they just operate on a different frequency, one where their worth isn't measured by their online activity at all. So, this idea of this silent authority, it's really built on a pretty simple foundation. Real influence doesn't always need to shout. It suggests that sometimes the quiet, consistent work, the actual application of skill and value, that speaks way louder than any megaphone ever could. And this is the heart of it. The silent authority is a mindset, and it completely throws out that old myth about privacy equaling insecurity. It says that for these people, silence isn't about being insecure. It's a deliberate choice. It's a choice that comes from a sense of self-worth that's so deep, they just don't feel the need to broadcast it. And that is what we call quiet confidence. So what's the psychology driving this? What's going on inside someone's head that makes all the likes, the follows, the constant external validation feel, optional? Well, the first key piece of the puzzle is something psychologists call intrinsic motivation. And it's a powerful thing. It means you get your satisfaction from the act of doing something, the creating, the building, the problem solving itself, not from the applause you might get for it later on. To put it another way, it's all about finding fulfillment in your actions themselves, not in the reaction they get. The reward is the work. The validation comes from inside, from knowing you've met your own standards, not from how many people double-tapped a picture of it. But where does that powerful intrinsic motivation even come from? It has to be built on a foundation, right? And that foundation is what we call a stable sense of self. This is the absolute key that unlocks the ability to see external validation as totally optional. The psychological term for this is self-concept clarity. And all that really means is having a stable, clear idea of who you are. When you have that, your identity isn't fragile. It doesn't need to be propped up by a constant stream of comments or likes just for you to feel valid. And you can really see how this all connects in a logical chain. It starts with developing a strong internal identity. That, in turn, leads you to act based on your own personal values. And when you do that, you feel valid from within, which naturally just reduces the need to constantly perform your identity for an audience online. Okay, so let's bring this all back home. What does this actually mean for you and how you think about your own life online? It's really about reframing what silence, or even just posting less, might actually mean. So let's recap the big ideas here. First, and this is crucial, remember that your value exists completely separately from your post count. Second, you can lean into that intrinsic motivation. Find the joy in the doing, not the clicks. Third, building that stable self-concept is the ultimate key to freeing yourself from needing external validation. And finally, the next time you notice that silence online, don't automatically assume it's irrelevance. It just might be quiet confidence. So, I'll leave you with a question to think about. When you look at your own social media, your own feed, just ask yourself honestly, is it a reflection of your life? Or has it become a performance for validation? It's a tough question for sure, but definitely one worth thinking about. Thanks for joining me.